Hello, everyone. It's that time again to show my appreciation to people who share their favorite great sounding albums. This video serves as my thank you and show of appreciation to the people who took the time to recommend these fabulous albums on the comment section of my Great Sounding Albums video series. People who share their favorite great sounding albums might not necessarily call themselves as audiophiles and are generally people who just loves great music. To those who share their favorite audiophile albums, I want you to know it's greatly appreciated because it gave me a chance to discover more great sounding albums. So here we go in no particular order. First is Sun Goddess by Ramsey Lewis, recommended by Sides Up 8286. This is a jazz album by Ramsey Lewis released in 1974. Jazz legend Ramsey Lewis was an American jazz pianist, composer, and radio personality. In the 1950s, he formed the Ramsey Lewis Trio before going on his own. By 1966, he was one of America's most successful jazz pianists. His music was mostly sunny and accessible covers of popular rock songs. But on 1974, he decided to change his musical style and teamed up with his former trio member, drummer Maurice White, to make the album Sun Goddess. By this time, White had already formed the highly successful soul-funk group Earth, Wind and Fire. Sun Goddess became a landmark jazz-funk album marking Lewis' shift from acoustic soul jazz to the so-called electric fusion music. Ramsey Lewis plays Fender Rhodes and ARP synthesizer and was also joined by other members of Earth, Wind and Fire and Miles Davis producer Theo Macero. So Sun Goddess is something of a hidden Earth, Wind, and Fire album as it features most of the key players from that band and have the same jazzier musical style and more atmospheric sound. All tracks are excellent like Jungle Strut and Tambura, but my favorite is the title track. Its funky and smooth sound with cool vocals from Earth, Wind and Fire's Philip Bailey have great sax solo elevated by ARP synthesizer and sounds fantastic in a good audio system. Next is Piece by Piece by Katie Melua, recommended by Fat Rat F9M. This is the second studio album by British jazz and blues singer Katie Melua, released in September 2005. From what I read, her debut album Call Off the Search was big in Europe and Katie was the best-selling female artist in the UK in 2006 on the strength of this album Piece by Piece. But I'll be honest, I was not familiar with Katie Melua. I have not really heard about her here in North America, although I might have heard a track from her on one of the audio shops here. So thanks again for the recommendation. She doesn't sound like Nora Jones, and that will be a lazy comparison, but I won't be surprised if people compare these two jazz singers. She wrote or co-wrote most of the songs on this album, which is impressive considering she was only 20 years old when she recorded and released this album. Knowing that fact makes it more impressive how expressive she sings. The track 9 Million Bicycles was the album's most recognizable track. But the standout for me is her acoustic cover of The Cure's classic, Just Like Heaven, and I also love I Cried For You, which she wrote. This album will be liked by audiophiles because of her wonderful voice, recorded crystal clear, and that lush organic arrangement and big soundstage. Next is Welcome to the Pleasure Dome by Frankie Goes to Hollywood, recommended by EVDB9255. This is the debut studio album by the English pop band Frankie Goes to Hollywood, released in October 1984. Frankie Goes to Hollywood was formed in Liverpool in 1980 and made gay rights and sexuality a theme of their music and performances. In the early 80s, when popular acts like Boy George of Culture Club and Mark Almond of Soft Cell made their sexuality ambiguous, Frankie's two main vocalists flaunt theirs and made it part of the group's identity. The group worked with producer Trevor Horn, who had a digital audio workstation called Fairlight CMI that is just at its earliest stage. The machine enabled precise visual sequencing and was the first commercially available digital sampler that could record sounds directly into the machine and play them back at any pitch on the keyboard. The original mix handled the complex, sample heavy arrangements with punch and clarity without becoming overly fatiguing. In mid-80s, listeners were looking for powerful electronic sound and this album delivered it to them, anchored by the track Relax and Two Tribes. I also enjoyed their take on Bruce Springsteen's Born to Run, and I felt Holly Johnson's sincerity on the track The Power of Love. The CD I have comes with a second CD that have the band's recorded performances in 1982 and 1983. These tracks prove that Frankie Goes to Hollywood already sounded fantastic even before Fairlight CMI. Next is Blood by This Mortal Coil, recommended by MD Dawson 1. This is the third and final album by British music collective This Mortal Coil, released in April 1981. This Mortal Coil is led by Ibo Watts Russell, who is the founder of British record label 4AD. Watts Russell and John Fryer were the only two official members. The band featured a large rotating cast of supporting artists, including members of Cocteau Twins, Cindy Talk, and Dead Can Dance on their past albums. This album features incredible female vocalists, including Kim Deal, Tonya Donnelly, Caroline Crawley, and Deirdre and Louise Rutkowski. This double album is meticulously orchestrated. The music is a blend of dark wave, ambient, and ethereal folk. This is combined with brilliant selection of obscure songs, both old and recent, and transformed them into a new and unique listening experience. The tracks You and Your Sister and Late Night place delicate whispery vocals forward in the mix. You can hear micro details like mouth clicks, breath control, and will have a good idea on the physical proximity of the singer to the microphone. The track Ruddy and Wretched feature intense intentional stereo panning. Guitars and transient sound effects move aggressively across the soundstage, which can let listeners evaluate how accurately their speakers or headphones sound across audio channels. Next is How Dare You by 10cc, recommended by Robert Stotts. This is the fourth album by British band 10cc, released in January 1976. 10cc was formed in 1972 by four multi-instrumentalists and songwriters who obsess over pristine production. They had written and recorded at their own custom-built studio, Strawberry Studios in Stockport near Manchester. 10cc is known as a studio as an instrument band. Their records are practically stereo demo discs, featuring massive sound stages, pinpoint stereo separation, and highly innovative recording techniques. The album How Dare You has been described variously as soft rock, art rock, glam rock, or even progressive rock. It's the final album to feature the original quartet, Eric Stewart, Graham Goldman, Kevin Godley, and Lol Cram, before the band's famous split. There's a variety of great music here with style and eccentric humor, all served with dazzling arrangements and high production value. You will appreciate that wide and deep soundstage, full-bodied bass, and lush vocal harmonies that is best appreciated on a good stereo setup. Every instrument has a specific, highly deliberate place in the mix. Rather than simply using panning for a gimmick, the band used its effects to maximize the song's dynamics. I love the track Lazy Ways and Art for Art's Sake, but I enjoyed Rock and Roll Lullaby the most. Next is Slow Air by Steel Corners, recommended by Kid Capri 1711. This is the fourth studio album by British American band Steel Corners, released in August 2018. Steel Corners formed in 2007 and is made up of Tessa Murray, originally from England, and Greg Hughes, who grew up in Arizona and Texas. Their music is what is known as dream pop. Greg Hughes is the band's primary songwriter and instrumentalist, while Tessa Murray has an alluring and ghostly voice. They are based in London but recorded Slow Air remotely in the hills of Austin, Texas, which somewhat has affected the sound of this album. Slow Air is an appropriate title for this album as it's full of atmosphere. The music prioritizes mood and sense of space over traditional melodies. Reviewers always say that this album will be a perfect soundtrack for David Lynch's Twin Peaks because it leans towards Americana and is a heady mix of dark country and dream pop. The mastering of Joe Laporta at Sterling Sound leaves enough room for Tessa Murray's ethereal vocals to breathe without being drowned by the mid-range instruments. The track The Message features a gorgeous atmospheric guitar solo, while Black Lagoon blends pristine synths with smoky guitars, highlighting the contrast between deep bass lines and delicate whispering vocals. Next is On an Island by David Gilmour, recommended by Brad Lafran 4172. This is the third solo studio album by Pink Floyd's lead guitarist David Gilmour, released in the UK on March 6, 2006, which is Gilmour's 60th birthday. Majority of the album was recorded in David's private studio aboard his houseboat named Astoria. Some sections were recorded at his farm in Sussex and Mark Knopfler's British Grove Studios. The orchestra was recorded at Abbey Road Studios. The title track is obviously the album's highlight, with Gilmour singing, along with harmonies by David Crosby and Graham Nash, and Pink Floyd co-founder Richard Wright playing the Hammond in the background. The funky blues track This Heaven features keyboard work from the legendary Roxy Music lead guitarist Phil Manzanera, who also co-produced this album. On an Island is low-key, intimate, mellow, and atmospheric, showcasing Gilmour's signature guitar playing. Tempos are slow, the mood is relaxed, all the sounds are spacious and beautifully recorded. I have this feeling that Gilmour wants listeners to immerse themselves in the music but not dance to it. His impeccable guitar playing leads the heavily orchestrated array of instruments, but the music is still relaxing and minimal. Nothing groundbreaking, but it's an intelligently crafted album featuring a music icon and the best musicians from the 70s. Next is Collective Soul by Collective Soul, recommended by Mariano Urcare 8096. This is the second studio album by Collective Soul, released in March 1995. Although Collective Soul does have some serious chart success, they can be considered as one of the most underrated artists of the 1990s. Frontman Ed Roland considered this album as the band's true debut album. Their first album, Hints, Allegations, and Things Left Unsaid, was intended more as promotional demo. Roland is a large part of the album's sound. His deeper, lower-range vocals fit the band's music perfectly as he sings melancholic yet uplifting melodies. The album is full of delicate overdubs and precision mixing that highlights the power of the band without ever distracting from the delicacy and the intensity of the arrangements. The multi-layered production is complex and artful, and yet the music is simple. Collective Soul features several standout tracks, which, although radio-friendly, are great for fun but serious listening sessions. The World I Know features one of the best recorded acoustic guitars from the 90s. And tracks Where the River Flows and Gel are amongst the best riffs of that decade. It's as good sounding a rock album as anyone made that entire decade. I would even say this is one of the best rock albums of the 90s. Next is Down the Way by Angus and Julia Stone, recommended by Crazy Praying Mantis 5596. This is the second studio album by Australian folk and indie pop group Angus and Julia Stone, released in March 2010. Angus and Julia Stone moved on from the sweetness and light of their first album, A Book Like This, expanding with sweeping chamber pop elements, lush strings, and Americana-style guitar-based tracks. The album is self-produced by the duo and is a beautifully crafted melancholic indie folk record. It highlights the siblings' signature vocal dynamic, singing on the tracks alternately, and contrasts Julia's airy, ethereal soprano with Angus' laid-back crooning. Angus and Julia showcased their sincere songwriting and honed musicianship on this album. Angus blew his solo on Yellow Brick Road, and the soaring string arrangement is superb. The track And the Boys is Julia's standout. It's brilliantly arranged and produced. The song builds until the chorus and crescendo stays with you. But Angus' hit Big Jet Plane is catchy and makes full use of Angus' earnest delivery. One day, I listened to this track on repeat on a long drive across town, and it kept me feeling giddy. This album creates a warm, nostalgic, and intimate atmosphere, best suited for a relaxed, easy listening session. And people who appreciate great sounding album will appreciate its lush, intimate production and remarkably wide soundstage. And last but not the least is The Royal Scam by Steely Dan, recommended by Sides Up 8286. This is the fifth studio album by American rock band Steely Dan, originally released in May 1976. I featured Steely Dan's other albums, Asia and Two Against Nature, on my other videos on this series, so there is no more need for introduction of this band. The Royal Scam is affectionately referred to by Steely Dan fans as the duo's guitar album. It's a lot funkier and more fast-paced than Asia, and was even more drenched in jazz influence than the albums before it. And unlike the smoother production of Asia, the Royal Scam is appreciated for its funk-driven, polished, yet hard-hitting sound. Their albums after this will be tilted more towards jazz. The Royal Scam is not identified as a concept album, but almost every song's theme is about the narrator's escape from a crime or sin. The CD I have is an SACD released in 2025 by Analog Productions. The opening track, Kid Charlemagne, marries jazz rock with a slick funk sound. It manages to be both highly detailed and catchy at the same time. Walter Becker and Donald Fagen wrote the tune, but it's guitarist Larry Carlton who leads the charge here. His performance is capped off with an amazing solo. It's the moment when Becker and Fagen's hybrid of jazz and rock attained a perfect balance. And that's the 10 best sounding albums recommended by you, and I would also like to recommend to more music lovers through this video. If your recommendation did not make it on this video, it's probably going to be featured in the future. I just have not had the chance to listen to it yet, or the album you recommended might not be easily available at this time. I will try to do this appreciation video or viewer recommendations video again this December. Thank you again for supporting my channel and everyone that shared their favorites. Please continue recommending great sounding albums. Happy listening.